So based on what I've told you, if you were having any trouble with the first part of the assignment, I've told you all the theory I can tell you to help you do that first part. Okay? The second part is the modular part, modularity part, and that's, at that point you need to really have a model interactor separation. And so we've seen various kinds of interactors. Now let's go and see various kinds. Okay. So I gave you a general description of what a model is. Okay, I said it's got some write method, it's got some read method. And of course, it also goes and notifies when you make a write method, when you call a write method. And then I gave you an example, okay, which had the write method was an add, the read methods were size and get. So I have the general definition of a model, and I have a very specific model here. Can we try to abstract out and say, here are some kinds of interesting models between this particular example and the most general definition that says, oh, it's got some read and write methods. So look at this example here. I call it a simple list. Okay, I'm using two adjectives. Can I remove an adjective to make it more general?
A list.
Okay, and how might I define a list in abstract terms? It's got method, in terms of methods, yeah. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, an ordered collection of items,
okay.
But in terms of methods, you would want to be able to read things from the list.
Okay. And
writing is probably optional.
Optional, and many kinds of writing, various forms of writing could be optional. Do you allow addition, removal, do you allow replacement, right? So basically you'll have so model defines methods read and write. We'll make it more restrictive. We'll say indexed. Okay, we can have non-indexed lists also. We can have stacks and queues. But for our purposes in this class, and typically for most models, stacks are not something that are exposed as models. They are inside models that are not exposed outside. And the write methods can be add, delete, or whatever. Okay, so those are optional. So the difference, the reason why you would have different sets of different kinds of lists and not just one list type is because you might want to expose different sets of write methods. Okay, this is what we did with the simple list. It just exposed the add method from array list. Okay, and you might have other sets of methods exposed. Okay. Now, so here's my simple list. What if I change my array list to an array? Does it remain a list model according to my definition? What if I change the internal implementation from an array list to an array, and I had the same set of methods?
Adding is a problem because this code will just be.
This code will have to change.
Yeah.
I'll have to make a. After all, an array list is named so because it's internally got an array. Okay, so I could define my own array list essentially on top of an array, which I built a very large array, and I just keep certain slots empty. And if those slots get occupied, I just replace that array with another bigger array of double the size, maybe. Okay, so the external user still sees a simple list. Okay, and so this is what I want to mention here, that when we talk of lists, we talk of structure, we talk of parent node with some children nodes. And the structure is logical, based on the methods, and not physical, based on how you really implement it. Okay? It's not based on the instance variables of the class. It's based on the methods that are exposed. Okay? So the replacing array list with array does not change logical structure model, which is determined by public methods. Okay. So we've got a list model. Any other interesting kind of model that you might need to use in your project? You guys will use two list models. Okay, you've got your topic, you've got your history. They're both list models. What's the top level model? Okay, so I'd say the topic will be a list model. The And in this particular assignment, maybe the topic doesn't have to be a list model, but when you make it collaborative, you'll have to make this also a list that is shared among multiple users. What about the top level guy? What kind of model is that? So this is the history. It's a list model. I've got code for that in class. Okay. Like I said, this should also be a list model. Okay.
Why should the topic be a list model instead of just a single string?
Because I'm going to be, okay, anybody want to answer that? You guys remember the demo? When we made it collaborative, in this particular assignment, you can do it without making it a list model. But if you look at where you have to go later,
When multiple people change the topic, you need to figure out the order of the
so are we sending individual characters or are we sending the whole string? Does one person's string override the other person's string, or does one person's character get embedded in another person's string? If you look at the demos, it was not that we were sending all the complete string. We were sending characters, and one guy's character got inserted at this position, another guy's character got inserted at this position, and that's what Google Docs does, right? When you're typing your characters and somebody else is typing, it's not that one guy's file wins over another guy's file. It is, the characters get added up. Okay? So I didn't put enough constraints on this assignment to make it a model, but for your future assignments, you have to make it a model which is a list, which can be broken up into components. Okay. What about the complete object?
I meant a chat model, which has all of it.
And what kind of model might you call it? And I've got a word right on the screen to help you. Bean. How many of you? Some of you, 401 with me, know what a bean is. How many of you? What about the others? You know what a bean is? Or Java bean? You want to define a bean?
It's really just an object that adheres to a certain set of kind of conventions for notification about changes in properties.
Okay, so properties. It's an object with properties. Okay, a list has elements in it. This thing has a bunch of properties, and a list can have an arbitrary number, a variable number of elements. A bean will have variable number of properties, a fixed number of properties. Fixed. Okay, so bean model has getters and setters. You probably all are familiar with getters and setters and mutators. And what's the opposite of mutator?
Accessor.
Accessor. That's from C++. Okay, and model defines getter and setter methods to read fixed number of type properties. Okay, and a class defines a property P of type T if it has a method that is get P of which is the following signature, get P of type T. Okay, returns T. And if it's editable, it also has set P, and the return value of get P is the same as the argument of set P. And so that's called a getter. That's called a setter. And you have to follow these conventions, as was mentioned. You can't just say obtain P, and so that violates bean convention. So this is why it's called a bean. And the bean conventions are humans and tools. Okay, so if you're working in a company, they'll say, please adhere to these conventions so that we can understand your code. But if you want to build a tool, if you want to build a collaborative tool that is going to take any object and make it collaborative, it helps to know what's going on in the object, whether it's a bean or a list or some other kind of object. Okay? So I will require you guys to follow bean conventions when you have a static number of components. Okay? When you have variable number, use again, I would recommend you use those conventions. There's no standard conventions for lists. I would recommend the ones I gave in class. Okay. There's also index bean, which is basically like an array. So a bean is like a record, like a struct in C. Okay. Struct has got a fixed number of fields. This has got a fixed number of properties. Okay. And just as you have an array of fixed number of elements, there's index bean, but that's not going to be very interesting from a class point of view, at least. Okay. So Just as you can have hierarchies of interactors and widgets and windows, you can have hierarchies of models. Okay, this is the point I want to make. So your chat model is going to be a bean model that has maybe 2 list models and some other string or int or some other atomic models. Okay? And the composing the history model, so again, we already have a model for history. You can use the same model for your list also, for your topic also. Okay? Where rather than having a list of strings, you have a list of characters. And the simple list model can be a component of the IMB model. Okay? And then, of course, you can connect model and interactor hierarchies, and how you connect depends on the exact hierarchies. So again, there's no constraint being put there, but just want to, things can get complex, and the decisions you take may not be the best ones, but don't worry too much. Just do what is easiest. Okay. Okay. So the main point is that the models can be lists or beans. Okay, and these are both important for your project. And another interesting model that one finds, which is not relevant to this class, is a table model. Basically, it's the hash table. Okay, and you can compose models, and model hierarchies and interactor hierarchies can be connected in arbitrary ways.